What's up, everybody? Robert Thompson here. I was asked a question last night, and I've been thinking about it ever since, and I decided that I wanted to go over it a little bit for those of you who may have an interest in pursuing likewise, or some of the steps you can determine can be used for writing books. A lot of people out there want to write and publish their own novels or novellas lately. I'm all for that. Some of these points will help you out, but this is my general sort of how to when it comes to writing a script. Now, I want to say I have been writing since I was 3 years old. I've understood beginning, middle, and end since I was 5. That's 30 years I've been writing, and my career is just now getting to the point where it's financially viable. That I may not have to have, quote unquote, a day job next year. I don't know yet, but it's financially viable enough that it's a possibility. It took 30 years. I didn't go to school for it. I networked outside of that. I took a lot of jobs on independent movies that I didn't want to do. And of course, directing is the ultimate goal. I will get into directing when I have a movie that actually has a budget over $10,000. That's neither here nor there. This is going to solely be about my writing, how to, if I get hired for a script, this is what I do from beginning to end, and I go from here. This will be in a couple different parts. This first part is going to cover the first few sections, and then I'm going to cover later sections in other parts. So that way you're not getting too much too quickly. Again, 30 years it's taken me to get to this point. I didn't anticipate being a writer. I didn't anticipate being a screenwriter for hire. I had every intention of being a director. Sometimes your career paths don't work out quite the way you want to, but as long as I'm working in film, I'm happy. I'm not going to complain. So, first things first, step number 1. Let's say somebody comes to me with a script idea. They say, hey, investors have signed off. This is what they want to do. This is what we're going to do. Usually when people come to me, those that use me, hire me for writing, they'll give me a general idea or an outline of what they want, and then I basically fill in the gap, 90-page gap. Pause for a point. When writing a script, every page equals a minute of screen time. Okay? 90 pages is an hour and a half. Again, every page equals 1 minute of screen time. This isn't an exact science, but it should come out to roundabout in there somewhere. So if you're not getting a minute of screen time per page, your layout is fucked. You need to go back and work on the layout. I'm not currently going to do a layout video because what I do is probably different than what is actually supposed to be done. It's just forgiven because I'm good at what I do otherwise. But there is an actual layout, step-by-step process of how you lay out a script. And if it's not laid out that way, 90% of the time, anybody that reads your script is just going to pick it up, scan through the first 5 pages, and then throw it off to the side or throw it in the trash. Sorry to say. Layout is important. Layout dictates how long the movie is. A page equals 1 minute. That's the assumption. So 90 pages is the general consensus for a feature-length script in today's market. You can go a little bit over. Generally, no more than 10 pages. 15 is really pushing it. 100 pages max. You can go as low as 85. That's pushing it. They're probably going to tell you to add a couple scenes if you turn in an 85-page script. So, let's say I'm hired to do a horror movie, and I'm going to use a general, I've not been hired to do this script. This is just a general example of something that is feasible for you to follow. First things first, I'm you. I've never written a script before. I've never done anything. I've read a book or two on the layout and how to lay out a script, but I'm brand new to the world of screenwriting. I'm going to go to CeltX, CELTX.com. I'll go ahead and show that to you here on the screen. I'm not going to download it because I have Final Draft, which is what professionals use, and I'm not a noob. CeltX, CeltX.com. Now, from here, you're only interested in one aspect. Well, that's interesting. I apologize. I did not know that CeltX was not free any longer. That's an easy fix. We can fix that. I'm positive that there's some software, free screenwriting software. All right, so it looks like CeltX is free for students. I apologize. I've not used CeltX in like 5 years. I didn't know that it had updated to where it's not free anymore. But yeah, so I went to Google, I typed in free script writing software. The very first thing to choose from, second from the top 10 best free screenwriting software options for writers. I am not familiar with Arc Studio Pro, Causality, Drama Queen, Fade In, 2. Yeah, I'm honestly unfamiliar with every single one of these. I've not used them or even honestly heard of them prior to today. This is real time, so I'm trying to figure it out as I go. But yeah, free screenwriting software, 10 best screenwriting software options. Then you just download something. Your first project is going to be more than sufficient to use a free software program as long as it saves in a writing format or a Word format and a PDF format. It has to at least be able to save in a PDF format. That is important. PDF is the universally readable text program. Has to be saved in a PDF. Has to be changed and exchanged in PDF format. All right, so whether you have 1 page or 90 and your title page, it doesn't matter, has to be saved in a PDF. So you have to make sure whichever one of these you download has PDF as a savable download. CeltX is not free anymore. It is fairly cheap. It was like $7.50 a month. Not bad. If you start getting paid something for screenwriting, it might be worth upgrading to CeltX for that amount. It was what I used for well over a decade of writing. before I got to a somewhat professional level. But what I use is called Final Draft. That is the sort of universal screenwriting software. Go here, go to Final Draft. I'm just going to show you how much it is. I forget what I paid for it. Price for Final Draft 12 digital download only, $175.99. So it is a little bit pricey. So like I said, you're not really going to buy Final Draft until you start getting paid something considerable for some of your scripts. I think I went with Final Draft when I got paid $500 for the very first one. I immediately took whatever out of that $500 and was like, I'm gonna upgrade to and learn Final Draft again. Celtx at the time was free. But yeah, so there's the price of Final Draft. Anyways, there's your general basis for screenwriting software and what you're gonna go with. If any of you download any of those and use them, please comment and let me know what the layout and how user-friendly it is. I am curious to know. I don't intend on ever needing free software again, but it is what it is. So, friend comes to me, hey, we're doing a movie. This is the concept. The investors are in. The money's there. I need a script. Need a horror script. I'm going to go with horror because it's an easy example. Horror, by and large, is the quote-unquote, easiest to make. Easy is a very relative term in film. Easy does not mean you just pick up a camera and start shooting. That's not what I'm saying. Easy means, as far as budget goes, you get the most bang for your buck with horror in general. Comedy would be next, but comedy is very subjective. What one person finds funny, another person is going to find offensive. So comedy, especially in lower budget, tends to be avoided unless you have names attached to it and you have a budget and you have distribution already that wants a comedy movie. Otherwise, we tend to avoid it. Horror, action, sci-fi tend to be the go-tos as far as low-budget filmmaking goes. So let's say it comes to me, we need a horror movie. I want to do a slasher movie on, let's say, Ted Bundy, okay? If you don't know who Ted Bundy is, Wikipedia, which is what I'm using, I type in Ted Bundy, go to his Wikipedia page. There's what I'm laid out. This takes me to step one of my process. Research, all right? Unless they give me a very specific outline of what they want, beginning, middle, and end, and I just basically am paid to go back and fill in the details, which does happen very often. They'll send me a 5-page layout, and it's my job to turn that 5 pages into 90 pages. I find that way more simple. Toss in a few details, a few action sequences, a few kills, whatever the genre may be, and go on about my day. But this one, they say, hey, we need a horror movie. We need it to be about Ted Bundy. I start with research. I try to spend no less than 3 days on research before I start writing. I'll go to Wikipedia, type in Ted Bundy. Here it lays out literally everything about the man. If you don't know who Ted Bundy is, research it. I'm not going to fill you in. He's a monster, was a monster. That's about that. Wikipedia, Google, YouTube, all fascinating and absolutely reliable. No, I shouldn't say absolutely reliable. You can generally, between the three of them, find and correlate information and facts about something that will verify whether or not something is authentic. You do not want to make a story involving real life people, fictional people, or nonfiction. If you can stretch the facts. You don't want to just start making shit up, okay? I don't want to go, well, Ted Bundy was a serial killer. Let's put in the script that he ate his victims and worshipped Satan and was a chronic masturbator, none of which is true. But all three of which, if you look at them from a screenwriting standpoint, are integral facts about a character if it were the truth. So verify your facts as much as possible. You are allowed to stretch them a little bit. Of course, every movie stretches the truth here and there. It's important for the sake of drama, but you don't want to flat out lie. People will call you out on your lies. So Google Ted Bundy, and I'm just showing you, here's all that. And then YouTube, just typing in the general things. These are what I would be, Ted Bundy. Other things like Netflix, if they have documentaries like this right here about your subject, that's fine to use. Those are usually, the truth is stretched a little bit, but again, that's fine. Who was Ted Bundy? You want to watch these videos. He's had movies made about him before, so you may want to check out some of those clips and make sure that you don't just do the same shit over again for the sake of originality. Infographic show, probably shouldn't call out specific ones, but I will say that the Infographic Show is a fantastic YouTube page for details and facts about serial killers and paranormal experiences and ways to die, all kinds of like weird, random, cool horror shit. Yeah. So, and then other things like Ted Bundy's former girlfriend on being with him. If one of your characters is a romantic interest of Ted Bundy's in your script, let's say the co-star is a female romantic interest, you'll want to watch things from his former girlfriends that he left alive, what they had to say about him and stuff, because what they have to say about him plays into your development of that character. So, again, Wikipedia, Google, YouTube. Those are my three. And I should also state that this is for American audiences. Those of you overseas or in different countries, I apologize. I don't know if you have other sites to use or versions of these sites. I apologize. I'm not Ukrainian, so I can't tell you what Ukrainian sites you would need to write Ukrainian horror. Or I don't know. I'm sorry. Sorry, I find Ted Bundy fascinating. I get caught reading shit about him regularly. So there you have it. That's the basis of what I use for research. After those 3 days of research, and again, that's very minimal as far as screenwriters go. Some screenwriters will use 6 months. Quentin Tarantino has used, he disappears to hotels and shit when he starts writing, and can be writing for a year, doing research the entire time about varying subjects. At this point, right now, you do not have the time for that. Research has to be done within 3 days. Okay? That's me as a quasi-professional telling you My time limit is 3 days for this. After 3 days, I've researched enough to create my version of Ted Bundy, my version of his female co-star, and my version of usually 5 to 8 ancillary characters. All right, if you're talking horror, you want to keep it 5 to 8 usually for the lead cast. At this point, I start writing the first draft. And the first draft is going to come in on another part. So I hope that this was helpful. I know that I carried on a little bit, but I did try to cover the main points. You are not going to skip steps. The writers who have magically entered Hollywood and got their $1 million payday and shit, that might as well be a unicorn. It's so rare, it's not worth pursuing. Either go to school for this or understand that it's a pursuit that is going to take years of effort, practice, and perfection. And it's never going to be perfect. We're going to get into that later too. So here it is for part one. Part one is introduction.